Welcome to the service clinic at Low Country Harley-Davidson. I'm Doc Harley. I received a phone call from a gentleman said he's having handling problems with his Heritage. And so I asked a bunch of questions about tire pressure and handlebars and everything like that. And I said, well, when does this happen? He says, on the weekend. I said, on the weekend? What do you do on the weekend? He says, I load up the back of my motorcycle with the tent and the cookware and clothing and tools, and I just go and have an adventure. And I said, okay, and so when you load up your motorcycle, you adjust your shock absorber? And he said, adjust what? I said, oh, this is a good topic for Doc Harley. Let's talk about this a little bit. Every motorcycle has a shock. In the early days, we had this type of shock absorber, and when you added a passenger or you added a whole bunch of gear, you adjusted it with something like this or something like this. Now, I took this one apart so you could kind of understand what we're doing. What we're doing is adjusting the preload on this big old spring. So you reach on up here and we have these ramps. In this position is the lightest preload on the spring, and it gives you really a nice soft ride. Well, I'm going to add a little gear and go for the weekend, so I'm going to pop it up to this, and then I'm going to add a passenger and I'm going to bring that gear, and the maximum is way up here. And the way we'd adjust this old one is, you see these grooves here? Well, this would fit on here, and we would take this and adjust it up and down on the ramps. Now, the problem is you really need to get down on the ground and look up and see which ramp am I on, because both shocks have to be adjusted the same. You can't have the lightest over here and the heaviest over here and have the best of both worlds. No, your bike's going to do a pogo stick down the road. So we needed adjustments. Now, on some Sportsters, it was quite plain to see. So you would take your spanner wrench and you'd put it in the notch and you would turn it, and it would ramp it up onto the next one. And then, depending on the weight or the feel of the motorcycle, you would ramp it up to the next one. Adjusting the shocks takes the motorcycle from all the weight here and adjusts it up so you have the weight distribution. When you load up your motorcycle in the back and don't adjust the shock, well, look what got really light up front here. And then the handling starts happening here. So you want to adjust the preload to handle it to keep the motorcycle straight. Now, some of you have air shocks. You can have zero air on a daily basis and have a very comfortable ride. But when you start adding gear in the saddlebags and the trunk and the passenger and all that, you had to add air, and no air from a gas station, okay? This little thing, because you'll blow the shock with any air, but you pump it up. And you've got charts in your manual of, okay, I weigh this much and I'm adding my wife's weight and I'm adding gear. So you follow the chart over and you go, okay, I'm supposed to add 10 PSI. But this one here, this manual here, is for this Heritage here. So I wanted to go over that for the guy that owns the Heritage. This is an M8 Heritage, and the adjustment is underneath the seat. Now, all Heritages come with this tool because there are different types of shock adjustment according to the years. On the earliest ones, you had a spanner just like the early style where you reached in and you ramped it up. On some models, you have a hydraulic unit over here and you turn it to the numbers that you want. On this model here, you use the opposite end and you put it inside on this and you rotate it. Clockwise, you're putting more preload on it, and you count how many of the lines that are showing. Counterclockwise, less preload, a lighter ride on it. This is important to adjust for the weight that you are putting on your motorcycle. And most Harley-Davidsons that I've seen set up at a dealership are on the lightest setting when they're sold, because you only ride for 10-15 minutes. So you want a nice, plush, easy ride. You're not going for a really over bumpy areas and stuff. So the dealership sets it up from the factory and themselves to the lightest setting when you're going for a ride. If you and your wife are test riding a motorcycle, ask them, can we adjust the shocks so we can make sure that this is the ride that fits both of us, since both of us always ride. If you're going to load it, adjust it. If you can remember that, I'm going to load it, I'm going to adjust it. You're going to have a better ride and better safe handling of the front end, because your motorcycle isn't going to be tipping in the back and raising the front. It's going to be level. Had to share this. Thank you for the phone call, and I'm glad that we got that all settled out for you for your next adventure with all your gear. Thank you for the questions that you send me and emails, and if you have another subject you want me to talk about, send it to me. I always take everything under advisement. I'm Doc Harley. We'll see you next week.